To begin with, if all of you don't mind just writing in the chat where you're from and what you're studying right now, or where you're at in your career, that would be super helpful. Ooh, Toronto. I love Toronto. I was there for a summer. I loved it. Nice. A senior in England, Florida, Dubai, California. Wow, this is amazing. Okay, super cool. Yeah, keep putting it in there. And if you have questions throughout the way, you can pop in the chat, but we'll also have a bit of a Q&A at the end. So yeah, I'm just going to briefly dive into my story. I'm a born and raised Albertan, and growing up, as you can probably see in the back, I used to read a lot of books, and I actually still do quite a bit. But yeah, I used to dabble into different disciplines that I really enjoyed. Um, and it was a great experience. I really loved that. And going into university, I decided to pursue sciences, which I absolutely loved. But I think from reading so much as a kid, I knew that there were all these other things out there. So I decided to go and pursue and read about and research religion and politics, and also do research in genetics and obesity. So I definitely took a multidisciplinary approach to my education. And not only was I taking that approach both in an academic setting, but I always found myself sitting at the front of the classroom, Googling different things that I could get involved with and how I could make a real and concrete difference beyond the borders of a classroom. And so I used to apply for all these different programs, around the world so that I could really understand what was happening in different regions and understand their culture, the technology, the politics that were going on. And so I was very fortunate. Of course, I spent a lot of time on Google, to be quite frank, finding these fully funded opportunities. But I had the chance to travel to Germany and Poland with a Holocaust survivor. I got to go to Portugal, to Switzerland, to Israel, all these amazing places, and really have the opportunity to not only learn about those areas, but I got the opportunity to connect with all these wonderful young people who were just as ambitious as I was about leaving an impact on the world and creating social change. I'd love to even hear from all of you. What are some of the social areas that you're really interested in making a difference? I'm sure a lot of you are very passionate about building and creating things. And took all that knowledge, both my academic and that experiential learning side, to really see what I could create within my community. And so I did things like join the City of Edmonton Youth Council. And through that, I was able to connect with other young people in my community and see the ways in which we could create tangible changes. Something that was really important to me was creating results and having an impact that was either short term or long term that was deeply affecting human beings, not just as a level for that quick moment, but something that would change their trajectory or enhance their well-being. Um, and so, yeah, I had a very unique undergraduate experience, which was great. And that led me to actually pursue a master's of public policy and global affairs. And I focused on security, tech, and defense. And I had an absolutely incredible experience where I was able to connect with students in my program who came from Nigeria, who were Lebanese. And through that, I was able to learn even more about different cultural differences. And that led to me and a team actually traveling to New York, The Hague, Geneva, and doing research specifically in gendered violence and conflict regions. And through that, I mean, I had a whole different lens of no matter how much I felt like I read in my life or the academic work I was doing and the experiential learning I had, there was something different about sitting next to someone who had faced, say, trauma or an incredibly transformational experience that the world needed to hear about. And sitting next to them versus just reading about it in your home country was something completely new to me. And that experience really taught me that regardless of how much you learn in an environment, whether it's in the institution or through experiential learning, taking that time to just sit with someone who has had a lived experience, extend your hand, listen to what they've been through, take that information, and then go and research it further yourself is something of its own. Um, and that led me to coincidentally end up in a program for entrepreneurship during my master's, where I met my co founder, Michelle. And during our experience in Next 36, it was hard. I mean, about a month into the program, Michelle, who was my roommate at the time as well, had a bit of a breakdown because there was no female investors or founders around us. There was definitely like a lack of female energy around us. And so we decided to cold email all these remarkable women that we admired in New York, and who were based in Toronto. And we started creating really cool video content. And essentially, we started building FLIK, to the question that was just popped up in the chat, I can see there. And that allowed us to formulate this community of incredible women, young women, women who were already starting companies, and to kind of go back to the drawing board and figure out a way in which we could connect these two individuals. And through that, we were able to create an apprenticeship experience where apprentices on their own time could volunteer and really get access to meaningful mentorship as well as skills training. And that could be for an hour or two, 3 or 4 hours a week, whatever it looked like for them. And something that was really important to us was, regardless of where you were in the world, you could have access to a virtual and remote apprenticeship. Especially with things that are going on right now with COVID, we really wanted to make it accessible. And that's something that's always been really important to me, is that we're not just taking a North American approach to solving problems or creating opportunity, but we're creating opportunity for people beyond just our continent and the region in which we grow up in. And so to date, we've been fortunate to match over 2,000 women from over 55 different countries. And it's been really amazing to see young women who are apprentices either take that experience, and hopefully they're able to take that and land a job or an internship or a fellowship, or they get inspired to start their own business, which is always my favorite story. Um, and some of them, it's really a career transition they're going through. So it's not just young women who are in their first or second year university or recent graduates, but it's also many women who are looking to make a career transition, who have a full-time or part-time job, but are looking for something new. And so they're able to learn about new skills in a new industry, or sort of unravel those new parts of entrepreneurship. Um, and so that's a little bit of an overview about me and sort of my journey to where I am today. And sort of to go back to the point of this conference and the economic side of things, I didn't have a lot of access to capital growing up, of course. And so I mentioned to you before, a lot of the time I spent on Google looking for grants, looking on my campus for how I could fund the initiatives that I wanted to build and create, or fund the experiential learning that I wanted to take place, which of course required travel at that time. Um, and so, one thing that I'd urge all of you to do is, if you are interested in building and creating something, really start with your campus. So if you are an undergrad student, or even a student moving from high school into university, start to look at the funding that's available on your campus and within your networks. Usually there's grant programming, both on campus, but also through the networks. If you're part of certain fellowships, they might offer funding through there. If you're looking specifically for making that move from high school to university, or funding your university education, there are, as Canadians especially, it can be quite difficult to find scholarships at first. And so there are different platforms out there, such as GrantMe. FLIK has a scholarship actually right now that all of you, I'm sure, are somewhat eligible for, which I can link in after. But doing the research to find those scholarships and fellowships can take a lot of time. I was able to fund my undergrad experience through applying for scholarships or scholarships that were available on campus. And so I'm really happy to like share those different ones with all of you, so that even as a high school student, there are a few to allow you as you start university. And then there's ones once you enter university that you're eligible for in order to fund what you might want to study or what you might want to create. And I think to lend to that creation part is for a lot of you, if you are going to be entering university, there's usually entrepreneurship hubs on campus, or there's different scholars programs that you can go to and engage with, and that you can take your proposal for your idea and say, hey, this is what I'm planning to do. This is where the money's going to go. Can you help me out? What does this look like? And sort of taking that approach of the worst thing that you can hear is a no from someone, but you might as well try and see what can come from there, which is really important. And then in terms of the experiential learning and being able to go to all these different places, that took a lot of work. Okay, I was always researching things because it was super hard to find these opportunities. And so after this, I'm really happy to share a place where you guys can go, and I will be sending now monthly newsletters so that this becomes more accessible to young people to be able to have the similar experiences that I had. Or I have noticed a lot of different things popping up here and there where I'm like, oh no, they're marketing to the wrong demographic. Like this needs to go to younger people. And I think the reality is sometimes individuals who are putting on these things, they don't know exactly where to start and how to get really to the community level and reach out to people that might not be part of certain networks that have exposure to these opportunities. So I'd be more than happy to share all of that after. I see some questions popping in here, so I am more than happy to go through them. And if you ever want to go off mute and ask me a question or whatever it might look like, I'm happy to do that. Okay, so Ankit asks, when you will be encouraging women to start their own business or join you, what are the challenges you face and how you overcome from it? Um, Please answer this question so that I can understand the future. I'm also planning to start. Okay, so if I am understanding this correctly, you're interested in starting your own business, and you're just wondering points of where you could start, and some of the challenges that I face personally. So yes, for one, I love that you're interested in starting your own company, initiative, venture, nonprofit, whatever it might be. There are tons of places. So Ankit, I'd love to know where you're at in your educational journey, and that can help me sort of cater my answer to you. But I mean, for high school, definitely just reach out to your teachers and see what's there. There's usually clubs within each city that you can probably reach out to, or youth alumni networks. And that's always a great place to start. Another program that is excellent is the Knowledge Society. The short form is TKS, which I highly recommend. That is for the age ranges if you're in high school right now. Oh, great. Karen's from TKS. Okay, that's amazing. So I absolutely love that. And participating in those types of programs when you're in high school can really give you a look into how to start a business, or where to look for when it comes to entrepreneurship, or really taking the time to reflect on where you want to have impact. What areas are you actually interested in? Wissel, could you talk about more about TKS? Okay, so I am not as familiar with TKS. I mean, I haven't went through the program myself, but I am a supporter of the program, and I can link it afterwards. I'm sure Karan has some tips of what his experience has been like. The people that I've met who've went through the program are absolutely incredible. And yeah, I highly recommend it because the people that have went through it are fantastic. The people that run it are incredible. And so that's always a great starting point if you're in high school. In terms of where to start for even a company or running it, starting in high school, yeah, there's a lot of components to it. And so participating in an accelerator type thing, or checking on your university or your high school campus if there are entrepreneurial programs available, that's always a great start. I can also link afterwards some of the student founder programs that I've went through and that I know about, that could really help you with that transition. I didn't even know what doing a pitch was until about a year and a half ago. So the whole concept of building a business, there are multiple areas of it that need to be covered. And so I'm more than happy to share some of those programs with you that would really help you understand where you need to reflect on when you're starting a company and the different things that you have to think about. So I can definitely share that after. If anyone else has any questions, I'd love to answer them. Um, okay, these are all around TKS, so I will definitely link that afterwards for you all. But yeah, if you have any questions around scholarships or applying for funding or how to budget certain components, I'm happy to answer those. Amrita or
May I?
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
May I ask a question? So actually, like now you're running a business, right?
Yes.
And your job right now is around that business, which means that it's all economy. But you said that in your studies it was more around science. Um, do you think that studying that was important in your construction? And would you recommend someone who wants to run a business to go study sciences and that it's crucial to do that? Or maybe you say that it was probably a waste of time. Of course, like you learned from it, but yeah, like now that you're on business economy, do you think that science was necessary?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, first of all. So what I'll say is I absolutely loved studying sciences and it was a passion of mine, but I wanted to bring in other disciplines. And that's where I talk about the importance of interdisciplinary learning, because what it allows you to do is when you're starting a business, you wear every type of hat. And the concept of business doesn't necessarily mean creating $1 billion company, in my opinion, or the traditional things of what we think of as a business. And so, business could even be starting a biotech company where you can leverage your science background, or creating a social enterprise where you use your knowledge in sociology of studying gender relations, for example. So, I personally don't think that you need to study even a particular field to eventually end up in business and entrepreneurship. What I will say that was very helpful for me, however, making that transition and understanding how to scale certain ventures into a for-profit social enterprise business was doing some of the programming. So participating in those short-lived accelerators were very helpful. But I am very happy that I still pursued more of an unconventional degree in terms of who usually maybe ends up in business. But I'm really passionate about reshaping the traditional norm of how we see business. Personally, I actually never understood why people went to business school, or why people went and got an MBA. I had no idea what the value was in that. And even to date, to be honest, most of the people that I've come across who are in entrepreneurship didn't even study business. A lot of them came from very strong STEM backgrounds. And so I think having technical expertise, whether it is at that cellular level in biology or pursuing engineering or physics, I think that's something very, very valuable in conjunction, of course, with understanding humanities, how society works, and what those big problems are. But having a technical background can really help you solve some of those hard pressed problems that we as a society are facing. So, wonderful question. But I think to summarize, it doesn't matter what you study in your undergrad. Ultimately, if you are passionate about creating and building something, you'll find a way to do that. You'll have a more uh, broad outlook of what the problems are out there. And I do think participating maybe in a small, short lived program, whether it's an entrepreneurial one or a social impact one, can be very helpful in guiding you to scaling a business. And I'm more than happy to sort of share which programs I did to help with that transition. Okay, there's so many questions in the chat. I hope that was helpful, by the way.
Yes, thanks a lot. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Um, okay. What are some good websites for scholarships? Yeah, so GrantMe is a great platform. There's another one called Student Weekly Awards or something to that degree, but I'll definitely link after um, a, a page to where you can like find all this information that I'll be sending out in a newsletter so that you're able to access all this stuff afterwards. I just don't have it on hand with me right now. How do you determine your interest? This is also a great question. So there's so many different ways. And I think what's worked for me so far is a lot of deep reflection. This takes so much time though, and it's taken me a few years to get to this point. But really thinking about, I always say three, but that's very arbitrary, is three broad interests that you have. So for me, it's always been health, technology, and governance. And then taking a moment to think about within each of those verticals, what really pulls at your heartstrings? So, what specifically in technology, for example, is there something that you want to leverage or make a difference in? And that's sort of how I saw my trajectory going. So for me, one thing that I was very passionate about was creating a space for young women to enter the world of entrepreneurship and to be inspired. And that was sort of based off my own experience. And then I thought about the broader thing that I love to create, which is technology. So I thought about ways in which I could leverage my love for technology to solve a major problem that I was very passionate about. So one great starting point, and I think a lot of you had mentioned it in the chat before, is just thinking about those things that you feel like you can make a concrete difference in. Um, and here, let's just go. I'm just going to scroll back up here. But yeah, for example, some people are very passionate about mental health. So, if you're passionate about mental health, for example, it's important to start digging deeper into that. Is it a certain demographic that you're passionate about helping? For example, maybe if you're South Asian like myself, you want to create more dialogue around mental health for people of the South Asian population within North America. So, sometimes getting very, very specific can really help you narrow down your focus and create an organization or a business around that. And I mean, this is great, for example, like with EmpowerEcon, it got very, very specific. It just wasn't about empowering young people. It specifically focused on the financial empowerment. And that's getting very niche. And then even nicher than that is financial empowerment specifically for high school and undergraduate students. So you keep getting honed down closer and closer to where you want to see those tangibles happen, and it'll allow you to stay narrow and focused on solving that main problem. um, I hope that sort of answers your question. That one's a tough one to go through, and I usually have slides prepared for something like that, because the process of getting down to that takes a lot of time. um, okay, I'm just reading these. As a sophomore, what can I look at or go through to make the scholarship process easier? Or even just to find some that will benefit me in the future? Yes, I'll definitely share that stuff afterwards. I know the Canadian process better than the American process. However, I will gladly share some of the American scholarships that I've came across to help you out. Um, if you don't have enough money or not financially capable to start a business, then what tips would you like to give to people who are start willing to start but afraid of budget and other stuff? Yeah, for sure. I mean, so we've bootstrapped our entire business to date. We haven't taken any investment. The only way in which we've been able to fund is through non-dilutive funding. And so once again, I will share all of that afterwards. But I say just get started now. Start planning those smaller operational things or how you see your business building and creating, maybe start by doing something smaller, by creating a community around it. And I think that's one of the most incredible things that we have right now is creating community focused businesses to begin with. So it's really easy. Get a Canva account or start a marketing page on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, and start by creating content. Some of those things that take a little less time and less financial resources. And as you build a community, of course, you start to get connected with other people who can help you with introductions or introduce you to other grants and non-dilutive funding that's available. Karin, what's the best year to apply for a scholarship? So they are constantly happening throughout the year. I wouldn't say there is a certain moment where I like to call scholarship season that sort of comes about. And that's usually January, February, and then I'd say in this mid-summer time. But to be quite frank, all the best scholarships that I've seen, they're always coming at some odd time. So it's very here and there. And I'll share afterwards, once again, with you guys a list. And I will also be sending out monthly newsletters so that you can keep up to date with the ones that are coming up.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm really inspired. As a aspiring entrepreneur myself, so right now I'm in senior and I'd like to, so I'm applying to apprenticeships because I think they're the best way for my path. I think I have a business idea and a plan. My problem right now is, like you said, like finding investors and where the funding comes in. Could you perhaps elaborate more on that?
Yes, that's great. So, in terms of investors, if that's something that you're interested in at this point, um, where I'll say to start is it's actually a very hard thing to start. Like, even for myself, everyone, it all just came down to Google. Like, I feel like I was just Googling everything. And that's where I wanted to create communities where this didn't have to be the factor, because it is a high barrier to entry in terms of it takes a lot of time. Sometimes you just don't know even what to type in. But in terms of investors, um, one great place to actually start is Twitter. I know that sounds really weird, but a lot of investors hang out on Twitter, and sort of building your presence on there. And looking up very shortly, if you're in ed tech, for example, if you're creating a business around education, is simply Googling ed tech investors based in the UK or based in the US. And you can start following their journeys on these different social media platforms. And then in terms of reaching out to them, some of them will have different forms that you can fill out and that you can submit your business to. On the other hand, this is where I'll say building a network in terms of joining an accelerator program or whatever that might look like, even though it's not necessary, can allow you to have soft introductions to investors, because those accelerators will have closer ties to investors, which can be very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And once again, Iman, I will share with you through the monthly newsletter all the different accelerator programs that are available. So everyone asking about scholarships or like where to start, I will definitely be sharing that with you guys. There's just such a long list of material that I have that verbally to say it all is a lot, but I'll definitely share that. Melissa, if our major is in STEM, what is your opinion, advice on educating ourselves in business? Yes, I think it's great if you that this idea of a major in STEM, so a hard science, and then a minor in business and entrepreneurship. I've seen numerous people now pursuing that, and I think it's very, very helpful because you're able to take something that you know very well, whether it's technical or not, and then take this business lens to it of, okay, I want to take that, what I've learned in my major, whatever it might be, and actually scale that into something effective, into solving a problem. So I think that's a great idea. Myself, as I mentioned to you, but definitely I've seen people minor in business and entrepreneurship, and it does provide a helpful direction at a younger age. Okay, what if I'm the opposite, where I'm not at all interested in STEM, but interested in business? Should I take STEM courses even though I don't enjoy it? No, don't do that. You don't need to do that. If you're just interested in business, go for it. Some of the best teams that I've seen and the best startups that have been created are by people who have just solely studied business, and that's completely fine. What I will encourage you to do, though, is always make relationships and friendships, though, with people who are in different disciplines. Because when you come together, you can bring all that vast business knowledge and someone else can bring knowledge, whether it's a technical expertise, a non-technical expertise from a completely different degree, and you guys can build something amazing together. So go for it. You don't need to study what you don't enjoy. I don't encourage that. If you want to take a computer science class, intro one to begin with, so you sort of understand the basics, that's okay. But study the things that you love, that you're passionate about, and always keep an open mind in terms of, hey, maybe I should just take this one course, try it out. If I don't like it, that's completely fine. But really take that onus of building relationships with people who are studying other things. To run a successful business, do we need to have a commerce background? I'm sure that has kind of been answered now. Definitely not. I didn't at all. I told you I took kind of like an accelerator program, and most of the stuff I learned about business, to be quite frank, has been running the business. Okay, let's see here. Wazelle, I will
Yeah,
also say things for international students. Oh, Iman, go ahead.
no, it's Visa.
Oh,
I have a quick question, please. So, is it okay if I'm a sophomore now, and I still have one more year before
okay.
graduation. So, is it okay if I like graduate and then just did a gap year without studying, and then after that applying for the universities, because I hear that some universities require to apply during high school, some of them after high school. So I want to major in English, and I think it's I don't know what to do honestly.
No worries, Wazelle. If you don't mind me asking, what country are you based out of?
Yes, I'm Moroccan.
Okay, and where are you interested in studying?
What was your question?
Where are you interested in studying?
Yes, the university.
Oh, yes, where?
Oh, the UK probably.
Okay, so I'm Canadian. And so I'm only familiar with the Canadian system and how high school students apply for university here. So unfortunately, I'm not the best person to answer that question, in terms of how the entry works there. I know here, for example, most individuals, from high school apply in grade 12, to go into university. And gap years in Canada aren't as common as they are in the US, for example. And I'm not very familiar with the UK system at all. So unfortunately, I can't help you there, but if you send me an email afterwards and remind me of this, I can try and look for you if I know someone, who has studied in the UK, and I'm more than happy to make a connection there if I find someone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Um, okay, handling stress. So to handle stress, my Google Calendar, that has saved me. I think Leah would know. I emailed her before this, being like, "Is that this time or this time?" So I follow my calendar pretty rigorously, and I think having Google Calendar specifically is one of the most helpful things in terms of scheduling your study time slots, when you're going to be seeing your friends, understanding when exams are going to be coming up. So then you can plan ahead your study schedule, in order to be successful, or however you want to manage that stress. In terms of like managing stress in itself, there's definitely different coping mechanisms out there. I'm not the best to speak about them, but the way in which I've been able to manage my schedule and ensure that I don't freak out before something's due is I do start early, and I start working on those things pretty actively, before the due date for sure. And I think that's allowed me to both balance not just academics, but my extracurriculars, or building a business or venture or initiative, whatever that might look like. Um, Great. Yes. if anyone has any other questions, feel free to come off mic, or if the EmpowerEcon team has any questions, happy to answer. Here, I'll send the newsletter link. Cool. We could just give it a few more moments if anyone has anything.
How was it like starting off your company with your co-founder?
Yeah, I had an absolutely wonderful experience. I think because, you know, we were roommates, we understood each other, and it was just such a simple connection. I can't even explain it almost, but we definitely hit it off. We both bonded over our love for bubble tea and food, and we really were passionate about the mission of advancing women's economic participation and motivating young women to start their own businesses. And I think because we had faced the similar problem that we were trying to solve, brought us closer together. And above all, it really was that purpose to create something, create a community, and have this lasting impact. And one thing that we took with us really was this idea of humility, that we can be wrong throughout our journey, and that's completely okay. And we're willing to learn. We were so eager to learn all the time, even though we had conviction in the problem that we were solving, and we thought about it methodically of how to approach it and what to build. We were always happy to receive feedback. We didn't take all the feedback, though. It's always really important to understand that some feedback's not the greatest feedback, and some people don't know the problem that you're trying to solve as best as you do. And so taking advice with a grain of salt, but always being willing and open to learning and hearing and listening to different perspectives. I hope that answers your question. Okay, let's see here. When it comes to reaching out to college professors for opportunities, what are some tips you have? Okay, so this depends, I suppose, what type of university you're at. I was at a smaller institution to begin with, so I was able to formulate really strong relationships with my professors. I think the best thing, though, to start off with is start showing up to their office hours, showing that you care about what they're teaching, or if you have any questions. And from there, it might be easier to ask them, you know, I'm interested in X and Y. I would love the opportunity to work in your lab for the summer. Do you have any openings? Do you know of any research that is taking place? If that's a route that you want to go. If you're in business school, for example, too, is going to the office hours of your business professor and maybe running your idea by them, and they might have resources or ideas for what other reflection questions you should take into consideration or where you can get started. Can we count on scholarships getting into universities? I think that's a tough question for me to answer in particular, because it really depends on, and this is the unfortunate part, but it really does depend on where you're located, the accessibility, like what the requirements are. And they can be quite difficult to get. But hopefully, I mean, with some of the things that I share, it does become a little bit more accessible, but to count only on scholarships, I can't speak to. I mostly received my scholarships once I was in university. I know in Canada, there's a few to help you enter university, but even those are definitely less than the need is for there. Let's see here, sorry. I've just been working on connections lately, and I'm currently part of several student-led organizations. Nervous to start a business.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
If you want to get a scholarship for a master's degree in Canada, is it possible from Morocco?
So from Morocco, I'm not quite sure specifically, but I'm sure there is an opportunity. I know that in my master's program, there were students who were international students who did receive scholarships. It just depends usually on what country you're coming from. sometimes your country itself also offers scholarships for you to study abroad, or there's programming within your regions that will sponsor your opportunity to go and study abroad. So that's something that you would have to look into. Another great way to do that is if you're interested in a specific master's program in Canada, for example, reach out to that faculty. They usually have a recruitment officer or a point of contact, and you can just explain them your situation. You're from Morocco, you're interested in studying in their masters of X, Y, and Z, and you would love to know what the scholarships and the funding resources look like. And I'm sure they'd be more than happy to share that with you.
Yes, thank you so much.
No problem. Okay. Do you have any tips on building a niche community around a business or venture? Yeah, community is so interesting. I've loved this opportunity to really build that for the FLIK community, as well as I did create something for the South Asian community when COVID had hit. And I think to that degree, really reflecting on what your niche is, who your target market is, what is it that you're trying to do? What's the purpose behind your work, and who is it going to help? And that can help you create a community that's very tied to not just your mission and the social impact values that you have, but it can also allow you to partner with different organizations. And I always love the idea of partnerships because it helps to build different communities who are solving a similar mission together. Okay, QuestBridge, that sounds great. I'm not familiar with it, but I'm sure that's quite helpful for individuals in the US. Yeah. If anyone else has any other questions. Yay, that's so exciting. I hope you get in too. Let me know if you do. I'm confident you will though. Can you answer mine? How did you come up with a unique business idea? Business ideas are interesting. Usually I'd say so far what I've seen is you've either experienced the problem yourself, and so you've come up with a solution to solve that problem that you encountered yourself, or from an outsider, you sort of come into a new industry or you trickle upon something and you're like, wait, why is it like that? And you might have no experience in that area, but you're like, something's got to change. And so those are the ways in which I've seen business ideas sort of come up. The unique part to it is sometimes it's not even a unique idea. It's something that people just haven't been willing to go and take that first step and start that business and go and solve that problem. How would you suggest growing your personal brand as a student? Ooh, my co-founder would answer that question much better. I can share an article afterwards that she's wrote in terms of growing personal brand as a student. But I think some of the smaller steps that I've seen her take and some of the people around me is regularly posting on LinkedIn, sharing your story, being vulnerable with who you are, and taking whatever ideas that you do have and facilitating it in a way that resonates with other people, whether that's through writing on different social platforms or connecting with other communities. I'm also just going to move my laptop quickly. Hold on. Do you have any connections in India? I don't, but I would love some connections in India if you have any. I love India. My parents are from India. But other than that, I don't. Okay, there we go. Let's see here. To grow your brand. Oh, great. I love that people are answering some of the questions too in the chat. Time management for high schoolers. I think I touched on before. Your Google Calendar will be your best friend. please, can anyone reshare the link that Ravina shared? I'll definitely share it at the end when we're near again, so that you guys can all sign up for that. And that'll allow you to stay connected with me with the months coming and give you the resources that you need. Yeah, I'm happy to share my email. What are the best advice you would give your past self? Ooh, that's an interesting question. I know this is cliche, but everything happens for a reason. I have had so many rejections, which quite frankly, I'm just not phased with, but I've easily probably had over like 50 rejections in different areas, whether it was a scholarship, a program, whatnot. And what I will say is just everything happens for a reason, and trust the process, because there's always something bigger or better out there for you, that's meant for you. And it's really important, I think, to carry that humility with you, that there's amazing people in this world. And if you don't get an opportunity, hopefully you can be happy and glad that there's someone else remarkable out there that's taken advantage of that opportunity, and there's something else that's in your path ready for you. Okay, yeah, this quest bridge looks good, so that would hopefully be helpful. I'm going to also share with you guys Grant Me. Oh, and I'll share you our scholarship that we have right now. So here's the Grant Me page for Canadians, and then the FLIK scholarship that's available for anyone, regardless of where you are in the world. Ooh, I think actually our scholarship closed, but if you sign up for the we have a reoccurring scholarship. So if you sign up for the newsletter at the very bottom, or on the main page, actually, you can get notified once the scholarship reopens in April, which will be great. So here, let me just send you the link to FLIK, and you can just subscribe at the bottom for when the new scholarship opens up. And that'll be happening bi-monthly, I believe, which is exciting. So yeah. And you can always see the previous application criteria that can help you prepare your application for when the next one opens up. What would you suggest? First graduate, then start your business? Start at any point. Honestly, whenever you're ready, whenever you feel like you can take the first step and dive in, start building it. And I think student entrepreneurs are absolutely incredible. I've seen remarkable ones come out of different universities who have eventually been dropped out of university. But just start in university. It's definitely a comfort zone. You have your education, you're learning at the same time, and then all your extra time can be spent on building out that business slowly. And everything starts as a side hustle until it becomes too much, and you're like, oh wait, this is a full-fledged business now. And here, I'm also going to share with you guys. Actually, I'll send that later because they're not even open yet. I don't want to give you guys things that aren't like available or accepting things right now. In my country, it's really difficult to start a business, like USA and Canada. I can't speak to what it's like in other countries, but what I will say in general, I just think starting a business can be difficult. It requires resilience and grit, but one of the most important things that you could probably do is just get started, to see how it goes, and you'll learn a lot along that way. And that might set you up for when you start your second business. And, you know, there's a reality that many people say is like startups fail. In my mind, they might not work out, but it was a teaching moment for you to go on to the next thing and build the next thing.
Hello?
Yeah. Hi, Mohammed.
Would you recommend me doing a double major?
What were you thinking of double majoring in?
An engineer in physics, then doing a management skill sales. Like, I want to merge those two skills and doing a company or start my internship.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, depends on your bandwidth. A double major, that's okay too if you're not going to minor in anything. I mean, it's definitely your preference, and I mean, I personally would never shed away from having more education. So if that's something that you're very interested in and you have a passion for both of them, then definitely go for it.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
Hey,
Hi.
may I please ask another question?
Yeah, go for it.
So how would you say useful it is to observe the employment market in order to guide us in our studies? Do you think it's useful somehow? Maybe important, maybe really necessary? What would you say around that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, certain degrees do lead to higher paying jobs, first of all, and then certain degrees are afterwards more in demand for employment. I think that's a hard question for me to answer personally. Some things that I'd encourage you to reflect on is if you're really passionate about something and you feel like it doesn't make a lot of money afterwards, um, you need to think that through a little bit more, right? I can't answer that for you about the different trade-offs that are involved there. Um, but yeah, that's a tough one for me to answer for you because I've seen a lot of go and study what they're super passionate about. And then afterwards, they don't end up with a very high paying job or in an area that is necessarily employing the degree that they studied, but they definitely go out and find still opportunities for themselves that they're passionate about and that they want to make a difference in. And it doesn't have, they may have to wait a few months to actually find employment for it, but eventually they do. Um, so yeah, it's definitely a preference thing and kind of looking at the resources you have, the bandwidth that you have, and what the reality is for you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, I think Leah, the answer to that computer science. And then usually any post-professional programs that you go into, there's always comfort in those. But yeah, that's probably definitely one of the higher in demand degrees.
Hey, I have another question, if you don't mind.
Oh,
Um, does working as an ambassador or like a council require an English major or another degree in university, or is it about another thing?
Wissel, are you talking about becoming like an ambassador for a country?
Yes.
Right. So I'm not as familiar with the pathway towards doing that. Um, I've seen ambassadors who come from law backgrounds, who come from years of public service, who have studied public policy, or have experience in a different industry and then transfer over into government and governance. So I think it's an interesting path. Maybe some people take part in foreign service, for example, or there's different programming that usually your country has enacted. So it really depends on where you're coming from and what the resources are available to you. But I can't speak from experience on that at all. And yeah, I mean, maybe a simple Google search might sort of help you navigate that of what it would be to become an ambassador for Morocco and what previous ambassadors have done. So even if you just look up the ambassador of Morocco currently to whichever nation state you're interested in, you can find out, did they study international politics? Did they go into law? Did they do X? Did they do Y? And you can sort of get a glimpse into some of the different ways in which people have ended up in that role.
Okay, so I do want to be mindful of
Thank you.
time. So thank you so much for answering all of the questions so thoroughly and also for sharing your journey. I think it was really, really inspiring. So thank you again for joining us today.
Yes.
And also, one more thing before you go. It'd be great if everyone can turn on their camera so that we can all take pictures with the speaker. So I'm going to give a few seconds for everyone to do that.
Oh, I love seeing everyone's faces. I wish your faces were on the whole time, but that's okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. And everyone, I just shared the link to my newsletter as well as my LinkedIn, which you can connect with me on. And hopefully those monthly newsletters that I send out with different scholarships and funding will help you land something super cool. And please, if you do get any of the opportunities, let me know. I'll also include in there the programs that I had done, so that if you are applying to one of those, you can always reach out to me of what the application process looked like. Or if you need a recommendation to get into one of the programs that I did. Usually there's a referral code, or I can even connect you with someone who's there if you have additional questions. So I really hope that some of you land some of those fully funded programs, whether it is to a cool place like Switzerland, participating in Global Change Makers, or receiving a scholarship for the summer to do research or anything. Yes, I can share my email address. I'm not as active sometimes as I would like to be, so just be patient with my responses. But there you go. It's just in the chat there. Actually, I'll just share like my website link as well, because you can stay up to date on that for my email address, just in case it ever changes or anything, or if you have to get in touch. So super excited. Thank you so much for having me. And the EmpowerEcon team, I can all see you guys. You are absolutely incredible and amazing. And yes, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. Have a nice rest of your day.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay, thank you everyone for engaging and for all of your awesome questions. Now we are going to move on to the next section of the event, which is more teaching. So now you'll get to learn all about loans. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we can begin to do that. Okay, so we can get started.
Okay. So here I will go over loans, and I will explain what loans are, the types of loans available, and differentiate good debt with bad debt. Now, it is important to have this preliminary understanding of loans, as most of us will take out a loan in the near future, and these loans are considered good loans because they would assist in meeting one's financial goals. Now, before we start, just with a yes or no, type in the chat to the answer, is that bad for you? Just with a yes or a no.
What's the question again?
Is that bad for you? So the answer for this is to differentiate good debt and bad debt. So basically, first there's good debt. Now, good debt is debt which is owed, and this debt helps to increase your wealth. Basically, you use this debt to invest. This can be investing in assets, investing in your own personal development. However, do be careful with the assets part. It may seem daunting to just take out a loan from a bank at a low interest rate and invest it in the stock market. However, something like the stock market is a bit unpredictable and can sometimes lead to bad debt, although you had intentions of good debt. So if these loans are taken out with the plan, then they can help you build your wealth for the long run. Basically, with loans, you pay a lower interest rate than your rate of return on investment. So if you take out a loan for, let's say, $100,000 and you get a 4% interest rate, then you're speculating that in the future you would make 10% or 15% off of that investment. So you would cover your loan and you would make a profit from it. So this is obviously your predictable rate of return. And if your investment goes south, then obviously you have to pay it back. And that's why it's important to execute with knowledge and with a plan. Now, examples of good debt are mortgages and business loans, but do be careful as these need to be taken again with a thought and a plan, as they can easily turn into bad debt. So, mortgages are one of the most common good debts as they help you build one of your biggest financial assets, which is a house. And although mortgages, they are considered under good debt, they can be bad debt if, let's say, the real estate market crashes as it did during the financial crisis. But then again, it did recover back, and especially in Canada, it is at an all-time high now. Second is bad debt. Now, bad debt is debt which decreases your overall financial plan. With bad debt, you end up paying high interest, and this does not bring any sort of financial value to your financial goals. Usually, this means taking out loans and spending money on things such as clothing. This decreases your financial plan for the long run. Credit card debt is a prime example for bad debt. It is really easy to fall into the credit card debt as that loan is just a swipe or a tap away. However, the only way to combat this is either to not use a credit card, but if you don't use a credit card, you will miss out on some of its benefits and some of its returns that you get, and some of its cashback that you get, or to just pay for what you make on your credit card. So this is kind of something you would need to do mentally and just pay for what you make, and that's basically something you just need to figure out. Now, do you think student loans is a part of good debt or bad debt? And you can type this answer in the chat. Okay, so I see a few answers and it does say bad debt. However, you would be surprised because student loans is technically good debt because it helps you with your personal development. And yes, exactly. It depends if the degree has a high rate of return because when you go to university, it's technically an investment that you are making for the future because you're speculating that once you get the university degree, you can probably enter the job market and have a higher paying job than what you would have without a degree. So technically, it is good debt because there is the aspect of personal development. But then again, it just depends on how high your degree has a rate of return. But obviously, with universities and everything as well, it is important to do something that you are interested in, but also to do something that has a high career possibility in the future. Now, finding the middle point is extremely important with good and bad debt. So now what exactly is a middle point? So having the middle point means to make sure that your good debt is not converted into bad debt. And obviously, any sort of bad debt is still bad debt. So the bad debt is the debt that you don't want. With good debt, you get low interest rates. However, if too much money is borrowed, you can potentially get higher interest rates, and this will also negatively affect your credit score. Now, it is also important to keep in consideration the use of loans, as one can be tempted to use their loan unwisely and ruin their good debt. It is also important to factor in that if your investment goes down due to an economic decline, the too much good debt, which soon will be bad debt, and that bad debt you will need to pay back. So finding the balance between good debt and bad debt is extremely important to make sure that your good debt is not converted into bad debt. And to do that, there's a few factors that you need to you kind of need to factor in, such as how the thing that you're investing in using good debt will look like in the future. And because obviously, even with good debt and bad debt, you won't want to go to university and get a degree in something that that won't exist in the future because of, let's say, automation. So next are term loans. So term loans, you basically take out a loan and pay it over installments. This is just a regular loan. And your installment date could vary depending on who you take the loan from. And this just depends on the understanding of the lender and the lendee, as it could be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. It's just on their understanding. And with term loans, you pay an interest on these loans, and these interests are usually compounded yearly. So next are revolving loans, and in this case, your borrower or your lender, the lender gives X amount of money, which can be withdrawn and used on a need basis for a specific amount of time. And then basically, unlike term loans, you do not have to use the whole amount. All you do not really need to withdraw the whole amount on the same time, and you can use money from the loan when you like and pay interest on only the money that you use. So if you have a revolving loan for, let's say, $1,000, and you decide that I only need $100, I only take out $100 for this year, then you only pay interest on that $100. But unlike term loans, um, if you take out a loan for $1,000, then you do need to pay interest on that entire $1,000. However, it just depends on your lender. Sometimes revolving loans might have a higher interest rate than term loans, but that just depends on your lender. And then essentially, revolving loans are a line of credit. So, in your opinion, which is better, revolving loans or term loans? Yeah, so it obviously it depends on your lender as well, but sometimes revolving loans can be better because you don't have to pay interest on that entire amount at the same time. But it just depends on the type of on your interest rates for revolving versus term loans. So there are 6 types of loans that I will go over. The first is a fairly common loan, which is mortgages. And mortgages is basically a loan that you take out to pay for your house. And this basically helps you to finance your house. With mortgages, you pay the price. So you basically pay the price for your house along with the interest rate. And this interest rate could be fixed and variable. Basically, what happens in mortgages is that with a fixed rate, you can have the same interest rate for, let's say, 5 years or 10 years. However, with the variable rate, your interest rate changes every year, and this interest rate is dependent on how your country sets its rate. So, for example, in Canada, the Bank of Canada sets the general mortgage rate, and I think in the USA it's the Federal Reserve that is responsible for doing that, and that just depends on that also depends on a few factors that I will further explain. And if you do not pay your loan on time, then the lender has the right to take possession of your property. And usually, this lender are banks, or it could be credit unions as well. And your house acts as a security for the loan. So if you're not able to pay the loan, then the lender has the right to either take you to court and take possession of your house. So what type of a loan do you think mortgages are? A term or a revolving? Yeah, so mortgages are a term loan because you just take the fixed amount of money from the bank or from whatever lender you're using, and then you just put it all towards your house. You just put it all towards your house. Plus, it's better to take a term loan for mortgages because you already know that you would use the entire amount of money that you borrow. So second are secured and unsecured loans. With secured loans, these are backed by a collateral, and a collateral is basically an asset that you own. So what a collateral means is that if you're unable to pay back the loan, then the lender has a right to take your asset away from you, and this acts as a security for the loan. With secured loans, you have an easy approval, a lower interest rate, and a higher loan amount. So you can get a higher loan for a lower interest rate. Now, basically, unsecured is the complete opposite of secured loans. Unsecured loans are not backed by a collateral, and they have a difficult approval rate. So it's harder to get an unsecured loan. They have a higher interest, and they have a lower loan amount. And what type of a loan do you think secured and unsecured loans are? Yeah, so usually these are term loans, usually these are term loans because revolving loans are usually just line of credits. But with these loans, these are kind of these are these are a bit different from line of credits because they're, for example, they're backed by a collateral, and their interest rate is kind of steady as well. So yeah, so they're usually their term loans. So next is home equity line of credit, and basically in this case, the borrower uses equity in its home as a collateral. So that basically means that the loan is determined by the value of the property, and your house is appraised, and the appraising amount is used as collateral, and that is the amount that is given in the home equity line of credit, because that is what counts as equity. So basically, to get it appraised, there's going to be an appraiser that comes from the lender side, and this is a fairly popular choice for making renovations to your house, and this is also a line of credit. So just to kind of sum that up, if this was a bit confusing, you basically have this loan is usually taken out from a bank or from like a credit union or whatever lender you're choosing. That lender will send an appraiser to your house to see what the value of your house is. And then let's say you paid 100,000 for your house, and then it's worth 200,000. So your equity in the house will be 100,000 because it increased by 100,000, and that will be your line of credit. And that 100,000 in your house is what will act as security. Well, sometimes your line of credit is a bit lower than your actual value that your house is appraised, but that is also just dependent on your lender. And this is a fairly easy one to know, but this is a revolving loan because this is a line of credit. So you can choose to, when you want to take out the money take out the loan and then pay interest rate according to that. Next are personal loans, and these loans are money that are borrowed to cover personal expenses, and these can be home expenses. So these usually last 12 to 84 months, and in this time you pay your interest and your loan value. So with personal loans, it's more towards if either you're unable to pay for your daily expenses, or you're having like a tough year such as COVID, and that is an example of when you would take out a personal loan. Sorry, did someone unmute themselves? So the next are small business loans, and these are loans that are given to entrepreneurs to kickstart their business. These are either given to entrepreneurs, or these are given to business owners if they want to expand their businesses, or business owners if their business has been declining and they they need to kind of keep it back on track. So basically, in this case, business owners or entrepreneurs can sell a piece of their business or take out a loan to help cover the cost. So what a piece of the business means is that they can sell a share of their business. So they can sell 20% of their business to an investor who would basically give them money for their share and would hope that their business does well. And so would
have
Sorry, did someone say something? Sorry, can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah, so sorry, as I was saying, so these can basically you would so the investors would hope that your business does well and they can recover their investment back. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this, but in Canada there's a show called Dragon's Den, and there's also Shark Tank. And in this, there's basically entrepreneurs that sell their business, that kind of pitch their businesses to a group of investors that would decide if they want to invest in their business or not. And that is basically an example of when entrepreneurs can sell a piece of their business. However, if you feel that your business is successful in the future, then the initial small business loan can be really helpful because you're not actually selling that share of your business. So you would keep that share to yourself. So that can turn out to be helpful. Next are student loans, and these are loans that are given to students to fund their education. Now, these loans could be private, provincial, or federal. And I know in Canada, you can either take them out from a bank, and in Ontario, there's something known as OSAP, which is Ontario Student Assistance Plan, and there's also federal loans that are given out by Canada. But this is all dependent on your country and how they decide to and how they want to give out loans to their students. And usually student loans have a lower interest rate and a higher time frame. So by that, what I mean is that there's usually a grace period as well. So that's usually if, that once you graduate university, you have 6 months and you don't have to pay any installments for those 6 months. And there's also a bit of loan forgiveness as well that is there for students. So if you, let's say, take out a loan for $10,000 to fund your education, sometimes depending on your lender, they could be like, since you got a higher paying job, or since you have done academically well, we would forgive $1,000 off your loan. And this is usually applicable for government loans. And student loans are essential for students. In countries such as USA, where there's a higher cost of education, more students are likely to take out a student loan compared to countries such as Canada, where the cost of education is slightly less than USA. But in the end, out of the 6 loans, which do you think is the most useful? So which one do you think is the most useful out of the 6 loans for you? Yeah, I see a lot of student and small businesses loans, but for your, I'm guessing for your current stage, the most useful one would probably be student loan, and then just depending on your goals and everything, you could be moving on to a small business loan, and then potentially a mortgage. But that just depends if you on what your goals are. If you want to go to a university, or if you want to start entrepreneurship from a young age. So that just depends on what your goals are. But I guess the main 3 ones would probably be student, small business, and mortgage. So student loans can also be a term loan or revolving loan. And revolving is basically a line of credit. So there's student line of credits where you can take out money when you need it and then pay it back depending on the money that you took out. So pay interest on the money that you took out, or a term loan where you just get a lump sum amount and then you would just pay that off and pay interest on that in your monthly in your installments. So lastly, we have lower interest rates. So countries have different interest rates, and these interest rates are dependent on inflation and economic growth. So during an economic decline, interest rates are low to make borrowing costs cheaper. Now, during COVID, interest rates were cheaper because of the economic decline, and governments wanted to make borrowing costs cheaper. And I know this is especially applicable for Canada. So Bank of Canada determines Canada's interest rates. So Bank of Canada decided to make the interest rates lower to make sure that people were still able to borrow money during tough times. So Canada and US have a lot lower interest rates than other developing countries such as Georgia and Turkey. So if you pay, let's say, 4% interest in Canada and USA, then in a country such as Turkey, you might be paying a lot higher, which your interest rate might go up to 8, 10, 12%. But also just to remember that this is also dependent on a lot of other factors that are also that are also dependent on the country that you reside in. But this is kind of the general benchmark type of thing. So this is just like the general interest rates that there are. But do remember that countries with high interest rates also give you high interest when you deposit money in their bank accounts. So I know that Canada gives you around a 1 to 1.25% interest when you deposit money into their savings account. So if I deposit $100,000 in a Canadian bank and into my savings account, then I will get a 1 to 1.25. So I will get 101. So I will get around $101,000 by the end of the year. But in countries such as Turkey, you might even get you might even get you might even get an interest rate in your savings account that goes up to 7 or 8%. And if you deposit $100,000, then you might get $107 or $108,000 in your bank account while doing nothing, and that is passive income. But usually when countries give us such high interest rate, that does mean that there's some sort of like inflation going on there. So there's a lot of inflation going on in the currency. So it can be sometimes it's not always that the higher the interest rate a country gives out, the better it is. Or the higher the interest rate a bank gives out for your savings account, the better it is. So are there any questions regarding loans? Okay, so basically, in conclusion, loans can be really helpful to meet your overall financial goals. However, the differentiation from good and bad debt is extremely important, as a loan might be helpful as a loan. So it's really important as a loan might be helpful, but they are debt by the end of the day, and you should always find the middle point between good and bad debt. So term and revolving loans are two different types of loans. In term loans, you take out the money in a lump sum and pay installments with interest on it. However, with revolving loans, they are basically line of credits where you can decide when you want to take the money out, and you only pay interest on the money that you take out. Then there are 6 types of loans which can be used depending on your goals and situation. And student loans, small business loans, and mortgages are probably applicable and will be applicable to a lot of us in the future. And finally, your interest rates vary depending on your location. Some countries, such as Turkey, have really high interest rates compared to other countries such as Canada and USA. And I see a bunch of questions. So yeah, so I can explain equity. So basically, with home equity, with a home equity line of credit, what happens is that you basically get. So basically, there's this your lender or the person that so your lender will send an appraiser to your house. So if you, let's say, bought your house for $100,000 and the value went up to $200,000, you would have $100,000. You would have $100,000 in equity because you made that much money. That's how much your house appraised. And in that instance, your lender can give you that amount of loan, or it's usually a bit lower than the amount of money the amount your house is appraised by. So your lender can give you that much. So your lender can give you that much. So your lender can give you a bit less than that, and your equity will act as security there. and you can use that, and that's usually used for stuff such as home renovations and home repairs. The home equity line of credit. Some people even use it as down payments to buy a second home. Well, loan advice that I wish I knew sooner would probably be to do more and more research, because loans are a business for banks, because banks make a lot of money from that, and they are competing with each other to provide you with a lower interest rate. So I can see that our next speaker is waiting in our room. So we can quickly go over these questions. Armida, how are we doing on the time?
I think we can go over the test your knowledge questions and then
All
we
right.
can get started on the
Okay.
speaker.
So the first question is, what are term loans? Yeah, so term loans are loans that you pay in installment. You'll just get a lump sum of money to start off with, and you pay it in installments with your interest rate. Yeah, like financing a car. That's a really good example. So, what is a good example of a revolving loan? Just like a basic general example. Yeah, so there's some student loans that are good examples of revolving loans, and there's also line of credits that are primarily are what revolving loans are. And what is the most common loan for housing? Yeah, mortgages. And finally, what is the best loan for entrepreneurs or business owners? Yeah, the small business loan. All right, so now I will pass it back to Armida to introduce our next speaker.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to be letting our next speaker into the room, and she's going to be talking about networking and building a LinkedIn profile. So welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We're excited to hear from you today.
Awesome. Well, let me know if I can share my screen now.
Yeah, you can share your screen.
Awesome, perfect. Okay, so here we go. Okay, can you allow me to share my screen? There you go. Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, and hi everyone. I'm super excited to be talking to you all today. I'm Stephanie and I'm from New York. So I would love to know where you guys are from. If you can just put it on the chat. I really want, and I'm excited to learn and hear from all of you. Oh, we're happy from India. That's awesome. You know why I always ask this question? Because I feel like I expect or assume that people are from one specific zone, and then you find out there's people from all over the world. So that's super cool to know. I'm going to share my screen in 1 second, but just wanted to introduce myself and let you all know that this will be a very interactive session. So I'll be asking you guys questions as I go through my slides, because I want to make sure you guys understand what I'm saying, and also that you guys get the most out of this session. So without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen, and then here we go. Awesome, perfect. So as I said, I'm Stephanie, and today I'm going to be talking about building brand equity and networking online. So what does that mean, right? A lot of you have probably heard before, like, oh my God, you need to be on LinkedIn, or you need to have, a good brand online. How do you do that? Right? A lot of people say go and do it, but then we don't really know how do we go about that, right? A lot of you probably hear about networking. You all hear, right, on a Saturday, and you're probably expecting or waiting to network with everyone that is here. But how do you go about doing that? So I think it's very important to know what are some of the steps that you can take to actually develop that. Because as I say, networking, it's a skill. As any skill, you must practice it, right? So I'm just going to go over a little overview of what I'm going to be talking today. I'm going to talk a little bit about my company, and then I'm going to go right ahead into my story, because I feel like everyone has a story, and my story connects to the topic of today and how I was able to land so many opportunities through networking and LinkedIn. I think that one of the most beautiful parts of networking and just like connecting with people on a human side, it's being able to overcome the fear of meeting the new people, because a lot of us have fear of the unknown, and some of the unknown parts are meeting new people. How many of you guys felt that way before? You can just put me on the chat. You felt scared to just go in and reaching out to a professional, or scared to reach out to a recruiter because you thought that you did not have like whatever it is, you were not good enough, like why would they reply to me, right? I felt like that before, and I totally understand if that's how you're feeling. But today that must change, because I am a huge believer on to say that you are the one who put limits to where you want to go in life. So one of those limits is your mindset. So the way you think about these things is going to change your game for networking, getting your dream role, whatever the case may be. So without further ado, I wanted to quickly talk about my organization, Max Up. So I became a CEO when I was 19, and I actually told my mom I wanted to be a CEO when I was 20. That actually happened when I was 19. It was 2 years ago, and I became a career coach. So I've been doing career coaching for the past 2 years. But I actually came to the US 5 years ago. So it was 3 years in the US when I started my own company. And the reason why I did it was because as I was going through college, I saw a lot of college students who were completely lost. They didn't know how to go about networking, recruiting, like anything. But I felt that way too. So I said, why don't I do something to change that? Because sometimes we see the problem, we understand the problem, but we might not know that we're the solution to the problem. So I wanted to make a change and make an impact on people's lives. And that's why I started my own company. And my mission statement really, really resonates with me, which is I aim to create an impact in the world, and that starts one person at a time. So with that being said, if I can impact one person from this audience today, my mission is done with this event. That's what I love to say. So I just want to quickly go over a little bit intro about myself. I don't really focus a lot about like the companies, but I focus more on the story. So as I said, I came to the US 5 years ago. When I came, I did not speak English. So to be able to be here speaking to all of you with English, it's just an amazing thing for me. It's another milestone, because coming from a 17-year-old Stephanie who did not even speak a single word of English, right? I was born and raised 16 years of my life in another language. So being able to do this with all of you is already a milestone. And I want to emphasize that because I want all of you to celebrate small wins. For me, being here today and speaking to all of you is a small win, right? And what I mean by small win is that I put all those together to the big win, which is really celebrating life. So I think that now that I'm able to speak to all of you, I want to kind of walk you through how I've been able to obtain all of those opportunities. So I previously interned at a lot of firms like Deloitte, JP Morgan, and I'll actually be working at Google this summer as a bold associate financial analyst within their finance program. So I have a lot of finance and accounting background, and I've been able to apply that to literally every single industry. So I've been in media and entertainment, I've been in accounting, I've been in finance, now in tech. So that goes to show you that whatever it is that you want to do in life, there's always a room and there's always a seat for you. Well, you need to do the work to get there, right? A lot of you are going to be working in your dream companies pretty soon. And there's a seat for you there, but you need to work to get there. And we're going to help you do that today. So I'm actually going to tell you guys how that one of those opportunities came to play with networking and LinkedIn. So I just quickly want to go over to what networking really is, because I feel like a lot of the times we hear that a lot of like, sure, like go get that business card, go get that LinkedIn, but that's it. Like, you know, it feels so artificial, like it doesn't feel really human. And networking should really be human. So how do we get to that point? So building and maintaining relationships for an exchange of value, right? So I'm gonna ask you all, like if you guys can just share on the chat, if I ask you what networking is, what's the first word that comes to mind? When you hear about networking, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about it? Because when I was asked about networking, I said, isn't networking like getting someone business card? I literally said that on that event. And I think like a lot of us think that, right? Like, isn't just that like you're getting someone's info, right? It goes so much more than that. So with networking, you can get referrals from your different companies. You could connect with someone for future projects. You could develop long-lasting relationships, and then you get and provide mentorship. I think the one that I prefer and what I like the most here, it's the third one, right? I see networking as a long-term commitment. I don't reach out to someone like a professional or recruiter thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna talk to this person today, find out what I need to find out, and then never talk to them again. I look at it as a long-term perspective. Like, okay, so I'm reaching out to someone today and I want to keep that relationship. So 2-3 years from now, I keep talking to those same people. And I think that's the beauty of networking. But for us to like kind of develop that relationship, there are a lot of steps that are in the way, like following up, right? I think like a lot of us are guilty. I'm gonna try to assume a lot of us are guilty on this audience that maybe one time we reach out to someone, but we never reach out again. If you're guilty of that, you can put me on the chat. You can be honest. Like no one's gonna judge you for that. I did that before a lot of times where I just reach out to a professional and like never got back to them or never reply. And I think one of the reasons why is because we really don't know how to go about following up. We really don't know like, okay, so what do I do now? Like, how do I get to speak to that person again? And so that's what I want to talk to you guys today, which is following up, the most beautiful part of networking, continuing that relationship so you can get the best out of it. So one of the ways that you can actually follow up is with this tool that a lot of you know. And actually, I wanted to talk to you guys about this. If you're in this room with 40 people, if you haven't already, you should have connected with every single person on this audience on LinkedIn. Now, if you don't have a LinkedIn or if you don't know what it is, don't worry, we're gonna go to that in a second. But if you don't have a LinkedIn, I would recommend that right after this event today, when everything is done and said, write down people's names, create a spreadsheet, put their names, put their LinkedIn, whatever the case may be, and then create your own LinkedIn. The reason why I said that is because I can tell you on these statistics are actually proven, LinkedIn given themselves. 760 million people around the world are on LinkedIn. And I wanted to think for a minute, think about it. 760 million people are on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, that means you need to be on LinkedIn, right? And then out of those 760 million people, over 25 million profiles are being viewed every day. What does that even mean? Well, I think when I'm talking about networking, you shouldn't be the only one like always reaching out to people. You should try to at least get people to reach out to you. But how do you do that, right? Well, you need to have a good profile on LinkedIn, and that's what we're gonna talk in a second. So over 25 million profiles are being viewed every day, and those profiles are being viewed by recruiters. So if you ever thought that, oh, I need to be reaching out to recruiters every day, like even in high school or college, there are ways to have them reach out to you, right? And that's what you wanna get to, a point where you're so good that they want to reach out to you. And I feel like it's hard to develop, but you can get there, right? And one of the other statistics and facts that I wanted to mention here is that 1 in 20 LinkedIn profiles belong to recruiters. That means that there might be a recruiter looking at your profile right now. That's how crazy it is, right? And another fact that it's been after the pandemic that has been proven is that 75% of recruiters are on LinkedIn use it to get candidates to work at their companies. So those are important facts to know, because that's how you know how important LinkedIn is when it comes to networking. So what are some of the things that you can do with LinkedIn is that you can make your profile stand out, build your professional brand and personal too, right? You can connect with people and interact, you can post engaging content and join LinkedIn groups. Now, who on this call does not have a LinkedIn? It's okay if you don't have a LinkedIn, you can put it in the chat. We're not gonna judge you. Who do not have a LinkedIn? And if you don't have a LinkedIn, can you put the reason why you don't have a LinkedIn? I kind of want to see here on the chat. Let me see if I can actually see the chat. Yep, I see. Okay, so you guys don't have a LinkedIn. If you guys can put on the chat here why you don't have a LinkedIn, feel free to let us know why. Okay, because then I can tailor better my answers to those things, those reasons why you guys don't have a LinkedIn. I see some of you already sending your LinkedIn on the chat. That's awesome. That's what I call networking. So some people said, I don't have a LinkedIn because some people might not be on all and off. That's true. Because I don't have a need for it or won't allow me to sign up, etc. And that is totally cool. Now, if you can sign up because you due to your age or whatever the case may be, what I would suggest for you is have it in the back of your mind for next time, right? Because that's how you know that as soon as you hit that age limit that you can sign up for LinkedIn, you need to sign up for LinkedIn because you need to be there as well. So the next thing I wanted to actually talk about was what I remember when I was in high school, right? I used to think like, oh no, I'm gonna worry about like connecting with people and like getting a job when I'm in college. That was the worst mistake I could have done, guys. I promise you. I wish when I was in high school that I could have like done a lot of different things to like get on my dream role. Like I think like it's even difficult to even know what your dream role looks like in high school, right? I didn't know. I know I wanted to do accounting. That's about it, right? But I think it's important for us to know like there are ways that we can actually land that dream role, even in high school. When I found out that there were high school internships, for example, I was like, whoa, I missed out so much. My first internship, I didn't have it until my junior year in college. And I feel like you can get experience as early as in high school. So I do think that I missed out on a lot of opportunities, but I just wanted to walk you guys through like how to go from like the networking portion to have your personal brand established on social media. So some of the ways that you can find specific recruiters, not just on LinkedIn, but other platforms as well, like Clubhouse. If you guys don't know about Clubhouse, you should know it today. Clubhouse is an amazing app which I joined, and I feel like if you guys don't know about Clubhouse, I'll definitely recommend for you to look it up. It's basically just a voice app where every single professional you can think of and students everywhere are on Clubhouse, and you can just talk to a stranger. You don't know from where. You can talk to 50 to 100 to how many people you want, or you can have private rooms with people. And I think like so cool because it's a little bit less professional, more casual. You just can just talk to people. It's like from all over the world. I just found it so cool. So if you guys are not on Clubhouse, you should be. If you guys want an invite, because right now it's an invite only. I have invites. I have like 10 invites. So feel free to like connect with me on LinkedIn, and then I can share my invites with anyone here because I really don't have anyone to give it to. So you guys can feel free to like let me know if you guys are interested. But I think like Clubhouse is so cool. I actually met so many like high school and like college students on Clubhouse. So I think you should definitely be there. And then like I would say like the next thing is like schedule information interviews in coffee chats. That's the second step to develop a really, really good brand. So like if you connect with someone, like say from this audience here, you should definitely take the next step and like schedule a call and try to know what they do, right? For example, I have a huge following on Instagram, and I have like my Instagram community, and on Instagram I share everything I do, and I take my followers from Instagram and I do like random calls and just like talk about what they want to do, what I want to do, and how we can help each other out. And I think that's a beauty of like really networking, right? So if you guys want to follow me on Instagram as well, feel free to do so. It's literally my name on Instagram. So I will share all my medias at the end as well. But, I think like the beauty of having that brand is really connecting with others in a different way. Like not just come to this event and then like don't take any actionable steps towards the next thing. I think you should really take an actionable steps and take it from just being on the event to talking outside and see how you can help each other out. Maybe you guys can work on a project together or something like that. I see the chat going up, so I'm actually going to be checking it out because I really want to see what you guys are saying. I love this. Yeah, guys, really join Clubhouse. It's really, really good. And you speak at, yep, you guys are right. And it's a social, yep. If anyone has like the link for Clubhouse, feel free to send that on the chat so people can join. So basically what Clubhouse is really about, it's to connect with people. I would say like it's similar to Twitter, but in a sense of like you don't really have to put your video or like posting. It's more about like voice. So you just talk, literally, you talk and talk and talk without stop. But it's really, really cool. And it's a little bit less professional on LinkedIn. I just like that because sometimes I'm like busy and I'm doing little different things or driving around and things like that. And I can be on Clubhouse and just talking to people. So I think like it's really cool. And I would definitely recommend for you to join. I've been in Clubhouse rooms where it's like 20, 30, 50 recruiters on the room, just like saying like, hey, we're hiring. Like if you're interested, just send me your resume. And it's just like so crazy to see like what people can do to make that happen. So the last thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to like branding is, guys, what does brand means? You know, I feel like that is something that everyone needs. It doesn't really matter what you are, whether you're like a high school student or in college or about to be in college or professional, whatever the case may be, you need to have a brand. So whether it be on Instagram, TikTok, who here has a TikTok? I'm sure you guys have seen some TikTok if you are on the platform. I have a TikTok too, and I personally take my brand everywhere, whether it be on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, Instagram. I feel like your brand is super important. So what does your brand means? It's like, how do people see you? How do people portray, or what do you portray that others can perceive? That's basically what a brand is. And what I want you guys to leave you today with is really, really take your time to look at your social media today and say, or see, what does people really, really see when they look at my social media? That's something you're willing to pay attention to. The reason why is because we never know, like we might think that we're portraying something on social media and then next thing you know, we're not, and people are seeing things wrong. So you always want to make sure your brand on social media is really, and let me tell you, when I was in high school, I was so obsessed with social media and like a brand because I really wanted to establish a really good brand online. So I feel like it's super important for everyone here. Like if you have social medias, connect with people on the audience and then continue establishing those relationships. So the last thing I wanted to do, you guys can take a picture of this if you want. It's basically this whole thing of messaging people, right? So I was saying at the beginning how like, yeah, like people tell you to network, like, oh yeah, go connect with this professional or go connect with this person. And it's just like, okay, so how do I do it? You know, like I don't know. You know what I mean? So I feel like the most important part is really the message and the following up. So how do you follow up with people? How do you message them? Well, I actually put together a message here on the screen for how can you actually reach out to someone, whether it be a recruiter, a professional, whoever it is, right? So this message is with Christopher. So Christopher, it's a recruiter at my dream company. And this is the message I sent Christopher. So I say, hello, Christopher. After doing a research on your profile, I realized you attended XYZ University, which is my current school. I'm currently learning more about investment banking, and I saw you work on an exciting project based on your last post. I would love to learn more about how that's experience been like. Can anyone tell me on the chat what's wrong with this message? Did anyone catch that? I'm gonna see the chat. You guys read the message in like 10 seconds and tell me what's wrong with the message. And you can guess like anything and everything with the message. Like, what do you think is wrong with this message? Someone said it sounds like I was spying on him. You know, it can be true. Like people can be freaked out of like the way you send that message, right? So you gotta be careful with that. Someone said the grammar. What else? What else? Let's see. Too professional, close an expression, include your name. Okay. X, Y, and Z. Yeah, there's a lot here, right? Like you can take on, but my main point here was really the last sentence. So I would love to learn more about how Dax experience been like. Believe it or not, people do notice when you have grammar mistakes. And that's literally the first impression they have of you. They're like, this person cannot even spell. Like, how am I gonna trust this person? I'm just kidding. But not really. Like people think that, right? Like this person like didn't take the chance to be more detailed to look at, you know, how they're typing this message or things like that. So I think like that's the first thing I would say from this message. And the second thing is like, I don't know. I think like this message could be a little bit better in terms of like, after doing a research on your profile, well, like, am I some type of like, you know, FBI investigator? or something like that, right? It really sounds creepy to a point, right? So I would just say, like, when you're sending those messages, just be mindful on the way you send those messages. Of course, Escocia University would be like their university, right? But just be mindful of when you type them. And this will be the best advice you'll hear in a while, I promise you. Do not like confuse people's names or companies. I've seen people who copy and paste the same message over and over just to send as many messages as possible because they hear advice on like you should connect with everyone and everyone, right? And then they just copy and paste the same message. And then they just call Christopher, hey Maria, how are you? Kind of thing, right? And it's crazy because it literally just takes 2 seconds to read the person's name and it's right there, right? So if you just make that mistake, what would they think? So some of the best practices that I have for you guys with both recruiters and professionals are this. Make sure you personalize your connection request. Don't go and like click on the send connection request to people and like, that's it, like you just send a request. No, make sure you send a note like this, but make sure that note is really a little bit better than what it is on the screen right now, right? The second thing is quality beats quantity. Do not send 3,000 connection requests or like go follow 3,000 people on Instagram because they're awesome. Make sure you're being genuine and authentic about who you follow. You know why I say that? Because when I wake up in the mornings and I see my Instagram feed, I don't want to see a whole lot of things that would negatively affect my mood, negatively affect my day. So that's why I follow people who I know that when I wake up and I go on my Instagram feed or my LinkedIn feed, they will motivate me. They will give me that energy to just keep going and do more, right? And then last but not least, pay attention to the details. Like don't misspell their names, don't have grammar mistakes, make sure you put the right company and so on and so forth. So those were the tips that I have for you guys to follow up and send those messages. Like don't just connect with that person once or like send a person that message one and then never connect again. Like that is the problem why we don't establish those relationships early on, right? If no one told you before, I'm here to tell you today, you need to continue talking to people because you never know, you might not need them today. You might think, oh yeah, I don't need this person today, or I don't need LinkedIn today because I'm good, or I'm not there yet, right? You might need it 3 years from now. You might, right? Because you land your dream role. So, and you want to work at your dream company after graduation, I imagine, right? So if you want to do that, you want to make sure you are doing things before that happens. So let's say next year, you reach the age limit for LinkedIn, let's say, and you sign up for it. You know what you're going to do? You need to connect with people, but you want to make sure that you do it as soon as you get there, right? And even before actually starting there, go on Instagram and follow your favorite like real influencers, like the people that give positive things to you, and then try to connect them on a different level, right? I see a lot of people who message me on Instagram, like my followers, and as I said, like I do calls with them and just talk about life and career advice and things like that. Do that. Don't be afraid to reach out to influencers on Instagram or any other social media, or just people in general. Like they're really genuine. Some people are really genuine about helping you. So don't be afraid to do that. So if you guys are interested in connecting with me, I actually left my QR code for both LinkedIn, for my company, and also my Instagrams on the screen. So if you guys want to connect with me, feel free to do so. I'm happy to chat more, especially with any topics at all. Like, as I said, I also have another like different type of Instagram as well, where I have like my community there. So if you guys want to connect, I'm more than happy to do so. I did see some questions in the chat. So I know, Empower, do you guys want to take the questions or should I take the questions?
You can take the questions.
Okay, sounds good. So I think we do have time for like one question. Like say, I think a lot of people went super on. So I'm going to start from here. What if you're just in the process of working on your English? That's a great question. So when I came here, my first 3 years, I was still in the I think I am still in the process of learning English. I do think that if you have like grammar mistakes, what I would recommend is use this app or platform called, I'm gonna type it in here. I use this up to this day because You never know. So I use Grammarly. It's free and it's an extension that you can add to your Chrome or any browser, and it just help you to have a better grammar overall. So I would definitely recommend for you guys to do that. Use Grammarly, right? And if you're just learning English, it's okay if you make grammar mistakes, but just be good enough to own your mistakes. Like, know that it's okay, but don't get stressed out because you make a mistake on English. Like, it's okay. Okay, let's see other questions here. How often do you think we should communicate with our connections? That's a great question. So I actually have a networking tracker that you guys can access for free on my website. I'm just gonna put it here. So you guys, I'm telling you, I'm giving you guys all the tips, all the sources, all the free resources because I want you guys to succeed. So if you go on my website, you will see something resources. You'll see a networking tracker within my LinkedIn 101 guide. So I made a 12 pages long LinkedIn 101 guide that literally walks you through how to edit your profile, to how to reach out to recruiters or professionals. And then there's a networking tracker. So what networking tracker is, basically you put all the people that you connect up with on that tracker, meaning Excel spreadsheet, and then you go ahead and reach out to those people based on how much time you want. So I think there's not really a right or wrong answer to how often you should really connect with them. I think it's really about, like, do you really have something to say? Right? Because if you think about it, if you have nothing to say, you shouldn't just, reach out to them and out of the blue and that's it, right? You want to make sure you connect with them for two reasons. Number one, you want to find out what they're doing and how they're doing with their life and everything. And number two, you want to make sure that those individuals know what you're going through or things or any active things that you're doing on your life. So I'll take those two other reasons why, how often you should connect with someone. Let's see. What's your advice on growing connections on LinkedIn? Should I only connect with people in my major industry, or basically anyone? That's a great question too. I think I'm gonna take this one and the last one, and I'm gonna call it because I know you guys have other things as well. So I think to grow your connections on LinkedIn, it's really about being genuine. So I am a content creator on LinkedIn, so I create content every day. You guys can go and see my posts as well, and I basically just like to add value to people, and I have organically just grown my network that way. I know you can connect with people by going on events like this and connecting with people. So everyone should put their LinkedIn URL or the link on the chat right now so you can connect with others. But going to events, right? Attending like on your school, like I'm sure there's a lot of like different events and career fairs, connecting with people that way, and then going on LinkedIn and seeing people's posts and then engaging with their comments, right? And then engaging with what they're commenting on and the people that are commenting on. Those are the people you want to connect with. And you shouldn't be just focused on your industry or your major. Connect with everyone and anyone. As I said, right? I am accounting and finance background, and I work in media, I work in finance and accounting, now I'm working in tech. If I wouldn't have had those people on my network, this wouldn't be possible, right? So make sure you connect with everyone, not just your industry, right? And then the last question I'm going to take is this one. Hold on, I just saw it. Okay. What is your opinion of personal websites to build your brand, and do you have any tips of suggestion? Yes. So I would say definitely have, if you have a specific talent, who are the people, does anyone like to create art here? Whether it be design, painting, anything of that sort? Because you should have a website. You should have a personal website actually with all your designs. Like I love designing on Canva and like flyers and things like that. And I have a website that I don't publicly like just like share, but I have it somewhere there with all my designs. You should have that. If you like to write, like there's people that like to write like genuine journalism or just write in general, just have a blog, like you should really have it. And then any tips or suggestions would be it. I'm more than happy to, if you guys have questions about this offline, connect with me and I'm happy to answer. But I would say the last thing is tips or suggestions. Make sure it really shows your brand and who you are. Like, don't try to create this huge, like amazing website that doesn't really tell your story or doesn't really tell your brand. So focus more on your brand and how you want others to see you on your website, as opposed to just like wanting to make it perfect. Because I suffer from that, like wanting to make everything perfect and I never start. That's the worst thing. Do not stop starting something because you need to make it perfect. Make sure you start first and then you make it perfect, if anything, because nothing is perfect, right? So work on it as you go, as opposed to just working and never releasing it. That's, I think, one of my main mistakes before. I never released my merch on Instagram, never released anything. So I wanted to make it perfect. I should have released it and then try to like perfect as I go. So that's it from my end. Thank you so much for having me. As I said, like, you can connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn, and I'm happy to chat anytime. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that awesome presentation. I think everyone really learned a lot about LinkedIn and networking, so thank you for that.
Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day. Okay, guys, so thank you so much for joining us today. That concludes our event. But before you go, we would really appreciate it if you filled out the feedback form that I put in the chat. So make sure to fill that out before you leave. And then that is the end of our event. And I'm going to play some music during that time. And also, please type in the chat once you filled out the form. And I'm really glad to hear that you guys enjoyed this event. Thank you to everyone who's filled out the form. If you have not, please do so, as it is very, very helpful. Okay, so thank you again for everyone joining, and thank you for filling out the forms. That concludes our session, so make sure to join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. EST for the last day of the event.